The crowned one.
The crowned one.
What's up, guys? How's it going? Glad to have you back here at the Crown One. And it looks like the debate is still ongoing between artists and writers in who is more important. And unfortunately, that seems to be the argument that has been kind of picked up a little again. So let's get into it. And if you guys are enjoying the content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell for the latest updates and the latest uploads for the latest content. Right, so the Todd has spoken. If you guys are not familiar with Todd McFarlane, this is the creator of Spawn. And if you guys are familiar with the Spawn movie back in the 90s, starring Michael Jai White, you know that Todd McFarlane had his hand in that. And also, of course, the comic books themselves, which led up to the movie. Now, this is something that's been going on for probably as long as I've been alive, as far as the debate goes between artists and writers and who's more important. So Todd has been doing an interview, and he was just opining on what his thoughts are as far as which would take precedence over the other. So what he said is that, you know, of course, we talked about him being a legendary creator and artist, co-founder of Image Comics. So if you guys are not familiar with Image Comics and you're into comics, it's probably time to climb from under that proverbial rock. But I'm pretty sure, you know, Image Comics is a household name in comic book fandom. Now, this is a story that's been reignited again, art versus story, in the debate of comic books and comic book history. Now, Todd has argued the visual aspects of art often carries more value than the writing and selling comics, suggesting strong art can outweigh a weak script for many readers. Now, as a result of that statement, that statement came with some weight. It's suggesting that that statement has led to commentary and conversation across social platforms. Now, I don't, because I can't, you know, peer into what is in Todd McFarlane's mind. For him to make that statement, he could have been saying it in a wash. He could have been saying it, I mean, definitely from his own experience as writer and artist. So he's been in both creative spaces. I mean, he's in that space. He is the man that launched his own comic book industry, as opposed to being with Marvel and also rivaling DC. I really can't talk about his state of mind. All I can go off of is what he said, and it seems like he's putting artistry over writing. And I won't agree or disagree. You know, the core of the debate is actually going with McFarlane's comments, you know, and it's about the perceptional value within the market. So he's speaking to that market, and iconic or compelling artwork frequently drives attention and sales, especially in single issue comics and collector appeal. Now, that stands to spark response from fans and creators online, arguing that storytelling and script quality are equally essential. Now, that's where the disagreement comes from other people saying that they're one-on-one. And that's to the medium's long-term impact and legacy, pointing out that the narratives are what keep readers engaged over time. And I tend to agree with that notion. And I don't want to say I disagree with Todd McFarlane. I don't want to say I agree with what the antithesis of this is. I do agree with that statement as far as keeping the readers engaged with good storytelling. But I want to talk about the human psyche. And from what I understand, from what I've learned, we are visual creatures, and we identify things first with our eyes. So and you hear people talk about, you know, whether you'd rather be deaf or blind or dumb, and people will say, well, they'd rather not be blind. They'd rather have any other ailment. Really speaks to the human psyche of how we identify things. Now, when it comes to good storytelling, or even I would even say from my own personal experience, when I go to a comic book store, you're not going to see initially the writing with, you know, the contents of the writing within the comic book. You're going to see the art. Cover art is essential. And when I go into a comic book store or if I'm online looking for some comic books in the Rippaverse or other comic books, I'm looking at the visuals. I want to see those. I want to see good visuals. I want to see good artwork. But I know that that is part of the puzzle for me. That's part of the bigger picture, and that is the good writing, because you want to have a compelling story, one that you can relate to, one with a few plot twists, a good storyline, good character arc, good story arc. You want to see those elements in there. You want to say, hey, look, after reading this, I can honestly say this is a great comic book, had great visuals, great everything. Now the question goes, can good artistry carry bad writing? And vice versa, can good writing carry bad artistry? And that's where I probably get a little lost in the sauce, because if I had to choose between the two, I honestly wouldn't want to show any bias. But I honestly don't know, because you can flip through. I mean, this is how I look at it pragmatically. If you're flipping through a bunch of artwork with no writing, then it's a photo album. If you're flipping through a bunch of writing and no art, then it's a novel, right? So, and I wouldn't downplay either of those two. They definitely have their worth. And when they come together, they make something amazing. So I think that both play equal parts. Again, speaking to the human psyche, yes, we identify with our eyes first, but we can also see letters, right? So that, I mean, again, and I know those things like, oh, I'm straddling the fence, but that's my true opinion. I think that they have equal share when it comes to importance, especially when it comes to comic books. Now, how this fits into the wider industry discussions, this debate is not in isolation. Debates about the relative importance of visual art versus writing have long existed in comic book fandom and creative circles. Now, some use McFarlane's remarks to re-examine how creatives collaborate and how audiences connect with sequential storytelling. And historically, there's a bit of a history with McFarlane himself. McFarlane himself, I was saying before, he's a celebrated artist and creator known for prioritizing the visual identity of his books, most notably Spawn and his run on Spider-Man when he was working with Marvel before he started Spawn and launched Image Comics. That was back in the early 1990s. So he does speak from experience, and I wouldn't take it with I wouldn't, I think I'm saying this right, I wouldn't take it in a grain of sand, meaning I wouldn't minimize his value, obviously, the value of his opinion, because, we're talking about Todd McFarlane, one of the indies, who made it, so to speak, who did his own thing, even though you have DC and Marvel, nothing against them, but you had DC and Marvel towering American comic book industry. And for him to go out and do his own thing, I think his opinion carries some weight. Again, that's my opinion, is that his opinion carries weight. So now the context of industry history, these kinds of debates are not new. From what we're saying, comic editors, writers, and artists have often disagreed, often disagreed publicly about roles and impact. An example would be the longtime writer, Peter David, if you haven't heard of him, who had well-documented disagreements with Todd McFarlane and other creatives in the 90s over creative and business issues. And if you want to know about that, you'll have to do some Google searches if you really want to know about the nuances. So again, this is not something that's new. I think I don't know if it's been dredged up, but opinions are high. I would like to think that this could be a unifying point. I don't want to be pitted against an artist. I think artists are great. I tried doing a little artwork. It's trash. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not there for me. And then it takes years to develop, just like writing does. So they're both in a sense, what's the word? Art, art doing art and art doing writing. It's a craft that is developed over time, and it takes a level of skill to get at, I would say, at a pace that people can kind of unify around. And what I mean is that when you have, those top level artists like Kanan White, and you have those top level writers like Todd McFarlane, Eric July, and those other comic book writers, that takes time. It takes time to write those things, to, whatever you're trying to market for them. You got to perfect it. You got to send it to the editor, to make sure your stuff makes sense. And you got to go back and you got to hone those skills again. So I wouldn't downplay either of the two in the subject matter. I would encourage both for unity's sake. because I think we need each other. I think it's a symbiotic relationship that artists have with writers and writers have with artists, because I'm writing my own comic book as well, and I've already finished the script, and now I'm getting ready to talk to an editor. I'm planning to talk to artists, and I want us to have good terms. This is a creative vision that is going to be one of unity, so that we can push out a great product for the reader, for the visual person. Whether you're visual, whether you like to read, whether you're an avid reader, it will be met there within comic books. Again, in my opinion, you can go ahead and read print-only books, novels, and stuff with no pictures, or you can just look at a photo album with no writing. So I'm sure there's other mediums other than the photo albums you can look at versus when you don't want to read anything. But yes, visuals capture the imagination, and so does writing. It's all stemming from one mind. You could have a person who's a writer / artist. You can have a person who's an artist, and you can have a person who's a writer. It's all coming from that big noodle right there, your mind. And it's important that we encourage people in their creative work, whatever it may be. I think debating can only sharpen the divide that's been going on quite possibly for decades, as we see here between Peter David and Todd McFarlane. Hopefully they've made some amends. I'm not sure what the status is on the relationship, but I really hope that we can see this as a unifying moment and not let people keep us divided, because we're the ones that's, going out there and doing the thing. And I think it's important when we can do that thing together. So yeah, that's all I got. I really hope that in the future, that's what it's going to be. I'm encouraged that it is, because I think people at the end of the day want the same thing, and that's good quality work to their customer base. And we'll see what happens. Hey, I do appreciate you guys' support. That's all I got for you. If you are enjoying the content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, smash that like button, and go on, hit that notification bell for all the latest updates and the latest uploads for the latest content. This is the Crown One signing off, and I'll talk to you guys later.